Listen, hiring support in your business without the right systems is kind of like giving someone a map with no direction. Where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to do? Right? Before you actually start hiring contractors or employees in your business, there are 5 core systems that you need to make sure you have in place, especially if you don't want to waste time, money, or stall your growth.
There's no stopping me now. I know my shot. Sit down. Money's all over me. I'm called to be rich and be free.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ebony Evaughn, your go-to business operations strategist, here to help you grow your business through people and processes. In today's video, we are talking about one of my favorite topics. Y'all know your girl has a background in human resources. Today, we're going to be talking about small business hiring and the systems that you should have in place before you actually start to grow your team. And this is if you're hiring contractors, whether it's for a project, or if you're hiring them for an ongoing basis, or if you are hiring part-time and full-time employees. A lot of people feel like, oh, because I'm not hiring part-time or full-time official employees for my business, and then I don't need to worry about having all of these systems and any type of structure in place. But I'm telling you, without the right systems, you are going to struggle when it comes to managing not only tasks, but probably responsibilities. When it comes to contractors, you're probably going to end up doing double the amount of work if you don't have the right systems and processes in place. So I always tell my clients, when it comes to hiring, my motto is systems before support. You want to make sure that you have the right systems and structure in place so that when you do hire for your business, everything works together seamlessly. You have people that come in and fill roles, and they're taking work off of your plate rather than adding work to it. When you have the right systems in your business, this is going to help when it comes to having clear boundaries, clear roles and expectations, as well as measuring results. So you know the team members that you add are actually adding value and adding to your ROI and not costing you money. So let's talk about the 5 systems that you want to make sure you have in place before you start hiring for your business. First things first, should be obvious, but you want to make sure that you have standard operating procedures. So standard operating procedures, or SOPs, are going to be pretty much outlines for how you do specific repetitive tasks and procedures within your business. So for example, you want to make sure that if you're hiring someone, they can come in and they can perform a activity or a process, and the result or output of that is going to be the same as if you would have done it yourself. And when most people start hiring for their business, all of their processes and procedures kind of live in their head, right? You just do things and you're used to doing it, so you're just kind of like on autopilot. But if you want someone else to be able to come in and take that task off of your plate, you want to have a structured process for them to follow that will guide them through how to do that task, and it's going to produce the same result or similar result if you did it yourself. If you don't have standard operating procedures, and then if you hire other people to do a specific task, you run the risk of having poor quality output or ending up having to do a lot of micromanaging or behind the scene cleanup work because the person was not clear on how to actually perform that process or task. So if you want to avoid this from the beginning, you want to make sure that you have clear SOPs for people to follow. So for example, within my business, I am in the process of hiring a new Pinterest manager, and I have SOPs for how to do everything related to Pinterest in my business. And this may seem like it's something that's so small, but I have SOPs for how we write pin titles. I have an SOP for how we write and structure pin descriptions. I have SOPs for how we create the graphics and even how we actually create our poster schedule Pinterest content, right? And you want to make sure that you have this outline for different processes within your own business. Anything that you want to take off of your plate, you want to make sure that you have an SOP so someone has a clear process for how it needs to be done and what the end result should be. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the second system that you want to set up and have in place in your business before you start building your team. And this is going to be some type of task management or project management tool. If you want to delegate tasks to someone else and still make sure you're staying on top of projects and deadlines and deliverables, you need some type of task management, project management system that can help you to track and manage this process. So if you're going to be delegating all of your social media to someone, you don't want to just assume, oh, I told them to create Instagram posts and that those posts are being created. You want to have it in your task management tool so it's clear this is the task that needs to be done, and you have clear guidelines and parameters around that. So it has a priority as far as the urgency, the importance. It also has a status as far as if it's not started, in progress, if it's ready for review. But in addition to that, you may also want to set deadlines, right? So typically within my task management tool, I have a due date and a due date, like a due date, like DUE. So when is this task due? And then I will have like a due date as far as TODO, like to do. So when am I actually going to do this, or when or is my contractor going to do this? And then sometimes I may actually have a third date, which is a post date. So in my business, we don't do last minute anything. So we typically will have a post date and a due date that is at least a minimum 2 business days earlier. So the due date is going to be way before the actual post date when it comes to like content creation. If it's a launch, then the due date may be 2 weeks before the actual launch, depending on how big or small our launch is, right? So I do have a business planning system that has a task manager inside of it. I think, well, all of my Notion templates that I sell, I think, have task managers, even if it's like marketing or whatever. So I'll put a link to those in the description box if you want to check them out, but not required. Okay, now let's get into the third system that you need to have before you start hiring, especially if you're going to have multiple contractors or employees, or you plan to scale so that you have multiple team members. You want to make sure that you have a delegation map or an organizational chart that outlines all the key players in your business, and it also serves as your chain of command, like when things are being delegated, who are they delegated to? If someone is having issues, who do they go to for what? So you may be a small business now, maybe you don't have like a hiring manager or like a finance manager, or like if they have issues with payroll, do they go to you, or do you have a financial manager that they would need to contact? If there's any type of employee relations issue, do you have an HR contact that they contact to resolve those issues? So you want to have an organizational chart that outlines all the key players in the chain of command. So if you do have like managers in between you and everyone else, typically for some of my clients, I serve as like an online business manager. So I basically serve as like a buffer in between the CEO and the other contractors or employees that may be on their team. So my clients don't want to be bombarded with minor questions or having to review and approve things all day. So instead of them going directly to my client who has other important things to worry about, then people will come to me. And this is pretty typical if someone has like an online business manager or operations manager or a COO within their business. So you want to make sure that you outline that chain of command and organizational structure. Now that you have your org chart, it's clear what the chain of command is. The next system that you want to have in place is going to piggyback on this, and this is having a clear communication system and protocols in place. You want to make sure that your employees know what your communication channels are, approved communication channels, right? So within my business, we don't communicate through social media. Like, don't ever feel like as a client or an employee, you can send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook and you're going to get a response. And that's because I am a social media minimalist, so I don't typically use those channels a lot. Sometimes I've had people send me messages on Facebook and it's literally like 2 or 3 weeks later before I see it. So within my business, we have approved communication channels. We have Notion we use kind of as our project management tool, really kind of for everything. We also have Slack as well as Voxer. So if you ever need to communicate with someone, you can use the chat in Google Meet and the workspaces. You can use Slack, you can use Voxer, but do not use social media, right? And so you want to make sure that your communication channels are clear and the protocols as well. So you want to set expectations around communication. So if you are communicating back and forth in email, do you have a preferred way that you want people to communicate? Like for me, start the email with a greeting, a heading. You could say their name. You could say, hey, hello, good morning, whatever. But I hate for people to send emails and it doesn't have any type of salutation or and it doesn't have any type of greeting or salutation. Okay. So like we have structure. And then not only that, but when you send email communications or if you send a message through Slack or Voxer, what is the expectation around when someone responds to those messages? So for example, if it's an email, you may say, okay, when you receive emails, make sure you respond within 24 hours. Or if it's a Voxer or a Slack message, then you want to make sure you respond within 6 business hours, right? Of course, I don't want anyone to be sending messages or feel like they have to respond at 2 o'clock in the morning. But if it's during the normal business hours, then communication should be free, flowing, and open, right? So you want to make sure that those communication protocols are outlined and crystal clear of what the expectations are. Last but not least, the last system that you want to make sure that you have in place before you start adding team members is going to be an employee onboarding process or some type of training process. Listen, I understand you are busy, you are spread thin, you are trying to add support to your business to get things off of your plate, to give you bandwidth to focus on the things that you want to focus on, need to focus on. But you don't want to throw your team to the wolves and have them fending for themselves, trying to figure things out. You want to set them up for success and empower them so that they have the tools and resources to do their job efficiently and effectively. And the best way that you can do that is by having an employee onboarding process that lets them know, okay, this is how you can acclimate into your role. Every person that I hire in my business has a job description. Okay, I will literally print it out. Well, not print it out, but I will download a PDF. I will add it to their employee folder. I will send them a copy of it so that they know these are the expectations. These are the roles and responsibilities that you're going to be responsible for. These are the qualifications and skills I expect you to have so that it is crystal clear. Okay. So in your employee onboarding process, this is how you acclimate them to their role. This is how you acclimate them to your business, to your office culture. And this is also how you can train them for what they're going to be doing day to day in their role. You don't want to just hire someone to be like, okay, you're going to handle all of my support boxes, but you don't train them on how to actually respond to customer inquiries or how to handle different requests or complaints that may come in. You want to make sure that you're giving them the proper training. So, when it comes to hiring in your business, one thing that I recommend if you're just starting out is to start small. Instead of trying to go all in and hire like a full-time employee, start by hiring contractors on a project basis, right? Start small. If they do good on that project, and then you can kind of bring them in and expand the role into other things as they progress and as they grow with your company. Also, when it comes to hiring, I tell people, like, don't try to hire 10 people at one time. You can start by implementing these systems one by one for different roles within your business. So, for example, if you know that you want to hire someone to take over all of your digital marketing, your social media, your email, whatever, then start first by creating SOPs for how you handle email marketing. Create SOPs for how you actually create your social media content. And then once you have that, you could build the training for how to succeed in that role. Once you hire someone for that role, then you could go on to the next role so that you're not overwhelming yourself. So let me know down in the comments if all of this is making sense. These are the 5 systems that you want to make sure you have in your business before you start hiring people. You want to make sure you have clear SOPs, standard operating procedures in place. You want to make sure that you have a task management system in place so things get tracked as well as managed. You want to make sure that you have an organizational chart and clear chain of command. You want to make sure that your communication protocols are clear. And last but not least, you want to make sure that you have a crystal clear employee onboarding process to make sure your team members are acclimated. If you want help when it comes to your recruitment and hiring process, then I would encourage you to check out Hire Correct. This is my recruitment and hiring bundle that is created specifically for solopreneurs, small business owners who are in the hiring process and ready to grow their team to help them scale. If you're interested, that link will be in the description below this video. As always, I just want to say thank you guys so much for stopping by my internet home. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on those notifications so anytime I upload another small business hiring video like this, you will be the first one to get notified. Bye, y'all.